I don't just talk about other people's stuff, I also make my own. Books in particular. To date, I have 4 books you can check out on Amazon. Operation Red Dragon: The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and the short story collection Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Hop on down to the description for Amazon links to all 4 books. Enjoy whichever ones you read, and enjoy the video.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Omni viewer, and welcome to Omni at the Movies, where our subject today is 65, the first major Hollywood dinosaur movie to come out after the end of the Jurassic saga. But does that actually make it a worthy successor? Well, I will say the premise was interesting, because if you've seen the trailers, you know what it is. Humans from a completely different world, so technically aliens, but still somehow human. They send a ship somewhere, that ship winds up crashing on prehistoric Earth. There are only 2 survivors who have to outrun dinosaurs. And it's not a new concept. I just reviewed Planet of the Dinosaurs, the 1970s movie, which this movie has often drawn comparisons to based simply on the trailer. I will tell you right now, though, 65 does not bear that much of a resemblance to Planet of the Dinosaurs. For one thing, Planet of Dinosaurs is a far better movie. I'm saying that even acknowledging that Planet of Dinosaurs is a bad movie, but it's at least memorable. With 65, it has been a very long time since I went to the theater and left without feeling anything. And yet I feel nothing regarding 65. It sort of sits in this weird nebulous realm where it's too competently made to be called bad, but there are a lot of incompetent things on display that keep it from being good. And the result is just kind of that it's there, which is almost worse in a way, because a good movie you can sing the praises of all day long, a bad movie you can rip into all day long, but a movie that just kind of exists and is a thing, where the most you can say is that it's a movie with characters and a script and don't forget music, that's not a good sign at all. But, I am an entertainment analyst. That's what I do on this channel, so I've got to talk about something. That's going to be tricky, though. I guess as far as performances go, Adam Driver and whoever the kid is, I forget her name, they're not bad, but they're not really given much to work with. You can really tell that this movie was made by the same guys who wrote A Quiet Place, because there's very little dialogue. Be prepared for extended sequences of Adam Driver breathing heavily, going like that for a very long time. And the kid does it too. Then again, when we actually do get dialogue, the only interesting thing about it is that the 2 characters don't speak the same language. So you would think some kind of language barrier would make it more interesting. That's kind of an enemy mine scenario where they have to learn how to communicate in order to survive. But even that in 65 is kind of just sort of... It's not really that complex of an issue. They figure out the main ways to communicate with each other pretty quickly, and then they just sort of go from there. It could have been interesting, but it wasn't. As far as visuals go, the movie's not that interesting to look at, I have to say. It feels like they actually used a lot of real locations and real sets, which I have to commend them at least for that. Obviously, there are some shots that must be green screen, but there are others that feel like they actually went to a location. And that's refreshing in an age where Marvel movies are leading the way of how movies look, and everything is just a big empty soundstage that they'll add all the details to later. and it's details most of the time that could have easily been done on location. Having actual locations is refreshing. Believe it or not, we've come a long way, haven't we? And yet, the movie just doesn't look that good. The daytime scenes are incredibly gray, with the one exception being on the planet these characters come from that's very bright and sort of golden almost. But Earth, very drab. And that's when you can actually see it. The lighting for a lot of this movie is really, really dim, really dark, really not in any condition to have something be seen. It's hard to tell what's going on half the time. And I'm guessing that might have partly been done to cover up the budget a little, because if your movie has darker lighting, you can potentially get away with showing dinosaurs and or any special effect really that isn't quite as polished as it should be, but it's dimly lit, so how are you going to really tell? If it were brightly lit, that would be a different story. Yet that just leads to extended periods where as I was sitting in the theater, I was watching and like, I think something just happened. I'm not sure how these two scenes connected to each other. Maybe if there was an actual light source, but yeah, it didn't really work out that way. Plus, considering it's supposed to be prehistoric Earth, the environment doesn't feel especially prehistoric. It feels wild, it feels natural, but it doesn't feel like it's an actual prehistoric location. They didn't do anything to really jazz it up in any particular way. They just went out and figured big trees, grass, and rocks, that's probably enough. We'll just throw some dinosaurs in there and call it a day. At least when Planet of Dinosaurs did it, they went to a location that has an interesting appearance. They went to the Vasquez Rocks, which are used for a lot of sci-fi movies to depict completely alien planets because of how unusual the rock formations there are. But not here. Not here. It just feels like they picked locations and said it was good enough. But I know what you're all really wondering about. You want to know about the dinosaurs, because that seems to be the main point of contention. Paleo Bros were lambasting this movie from the get-go simply because they were depicting more monstrous movie dinosaurs as opposed to scientifically accurate ones. With other people saying, well, we don't know how this is going to turn out, and maybe we should support it anyway because if this dinosaur movie fails, it might be a while before we get another dinosaur movie. After all, Jurassic Park / Jurassic World is over. But I'm here to tell you, as someone who has actually seen the movie, the designs of the dinosaurs are not the issue. The designs, I have to say, like, yes, there's a clear Jurassic World influence, though not completely. It's not just like every dinosaur is the Indoraptor. I feel like they kind of took the dinosaur influence partly from Jurassic World, partly from Cloverfield, actually, with the sort of angular way in which they move, and partly from Peter Jackson's King Kong. In fact, the more I think about it, the T-Rex design looks a lot like the V-Rex design from Peter Jackson's Kong. The raptors, I actually feel like we never get a good enough look at them to really get a good base on how they look. Like the one that attacks that literally comes out of nowhere, it's the first dinosaur we see. After Adam Driver kills it, for some reason, the camera focusing on its body never keeps all of it in the frame, which is weird. But like, okay, the designs are what they are. They could have potentially worked if the dinosaurs were at all interesting, but they're not. They are just generic monsters. In fact, remember how I said it was obvious that this movie was made by the people who did A Quiet Place? Well, in A Quiet Place, the monsters all basically act as a single horde who are just laser focused on killing the humans, right? That's kind of how the dinosaurs are. We have different varieties of dinosaur on display. They're all carnivores, yes, with the exception of one dinosaur that I can't actually tell you if it was a herbivore or a carnivore, because I swear, maybe I'm remembering it weirdly, but it looked like it was a different creature in literally every single shot. Like the camera cuts to a different angle and it looks like a different creature. But okay, they're all carnivores. That doesn't mean all carnivores behave the same way, at least not usually. But here they do. They're all basically interchangeable. And that is the problem. Say what you want about the Jurassic World movies, but even they took the time to give the dinosaurs at least some kind of quirks to set them apart in some way, even if it was just minor, even if it was just for one scene. Here, no such attention to detail is given. We could have had some interesting things going on where each creature behaved differently, and maybe that would have helped with the weird looking designs. But instead, we just have a bunch of dinosaurs that are attacking the humans because they're trying to attack the humans, even if it doesn't make sense. One dinosaur that shows up actually is an oviraptor. And oviraptors, like, maybe they were territorial, we don't know, but they're not predators. They go after eggs, or at least that's the conventional depiction of them. But it doesn't behave any differently than the velociraptors or the T Rex or whatever the really big one at the end is. That's another weird thing. There's this one especially huge dinosaur that comes up at the end. It's like, it's not a T Rex. It kind of looks like one, but it goes on all fours, and maybe that's supposed to be an homage to the Rhedosaurus, because if this movie really is the spiritual successor for Planet of Dinosaurs, maybe it decided to throw in its own Hollywood dinosaur as well. But it comes out of nowhere. There was no build up to it. We didn't know that anything like it was out there. It just shows up after the two T-Rexes. Yes, there are two T-Rexes by the end. After they've been beaten, and it's like, oh no, this is the big one we have to worry about. But I mean, without any build-up, it's hard to care. I actually, in one of the books that I'm working on, in my first draft of this particular book, I did something very similar where I had this bigger creature just appear to be the final opponent. And I finished the story, but even as I was finishing it, I knew that part was going to need to change. I need to do some more build up for that bigger creature before it shows up in order for its appearance to have an impact. Somebody probably should have told the guys behind this movie to do the same thing. The more I think about it, there's one particular moment in 65 that I feel perfectly summarizes how I feel about the movie, in that I don't think it's badly made, but I don't think it's spectacularly made either. It's during the fight between Adam Driver and the Oviraptor, as I mentioned. There's this one moment where, during the conflict, Driver drops his little proximity location tricorder device. And it's a thing that it displays a holographic image of the thing you're trying to track. And when he drops it, the camera stays on it and does a 360 around it as we watch Driver and the Oviraptor fighting each other as the holograms on the device before he finally gets away and picks it back up, as well as the rifle he dropped. And I feel like that's an interesting shot, or at least in theory it's an interesting shot, probably done to save on the budget so you could have the fight without needing to worry about making it look good because it's just a little hologram. But no matter how interesting it is in theory, it didn't blow me away. I didn't sit there and think, wow, now that is a brilliant shot. I just thought, that's different. Yeah. Like I said, I really have no feelings about this movie at all. It occurs to me, the thing about Planet of Dinosaurs is that while it's a bad movie, it's an interesting bad movie. It has its good elements, like I said in the review, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch that review. There will be links. But Planet of Dinosaurs is at least kind of interesting in how bad it is. 65, on the other hand, isn't interestingly bad. It's just kind of dull. And it's not incredibly good at what it does either. Planet of Dinosaurs, when it has something good in it, like the eponymous dinosaurs, those really stand out as impressive. But in 65, there's nothing really that stands out, no matter how competently it might be done. So 65 probably isn't worth it. I would say, yeah, it's a forgettable movie. I'm already thinking of other things instead of that. So someday we'll get a movie that comes along and dethrones the Jurassic series as the dinosaur franchise for Hollywood, or whatever comes after Hollywood. But 65 is not that movie. And who knows when we'll get another one. But that's just what I think. If you're among those who happen to see it, I'm sure you have your own thoughts, so feel free to comment. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off.
Congratulations, you reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, you might want to consider supporting us on Patreon. Of course, the other way to support us is to go to Amazon and check out our books: Operation Red Dragon, The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, The Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Also check the description for links to DeviantArt and other platforms we operate. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.